Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, and good morning to you. Here we go again, March 25th. I should be doing a countdown, shouldn't I? Remember when, I guess this was when Nightline first began, the show with Ted Koppel. I'm trying to think of now what started Nightline. It was when, during the Carter administration, when the Americans were being held hostage in Iran. And I think that crisis gave rise to that television show. You can check on that. I could be wrong. This is something that just occurred to me as the show began. I was thinking that because in Nightline they started doing this countdown on the show of day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 of how long the Americans were being held hostage, and I've lost count of days, and I'm not quite sure where to start it, but we're probably in for a long haul here, and it could well be that the show already existed, and my memory of it is that they started that clock in the corner, the countdown. It was not a countdown, it was a count up. And, single digits led to double digits, led to triple digits, led to Ronald Reagan being elected. Well, here we are. What we would give for Ronald Reagan today, huh? Gee whiz. Yeah. Well, see you all at Easter services, man, that'll be great. I don't want to talk about that yet. It's too early in the morning. Did I give the date? March 25th. I'm wondering if all of you have the same experience that I do, that moment when you wake up in your bed in the morning, and there's this split second where maybe it's just a millisecond where it's like it used to be. You wake up, and then bang, the reality of your life now. And it's, it's like getting just hit in the head first thing in the morning. Something, your first thing to overcome. Isn't that the truth? I was talking to a friend last night, and I was thinking how we think of time historically, and it shows the power of, the Western Christianized world, who have essentially created the timeline of BC, before Christ, and AD. Does AD, I always thought it meant after death, but I got a feeling it doesn't. Is that what that means? Before BC and AD, with the year 0, in between. And again, that's a certain way of time counting. That's a calendar that my faith does not subscribe to, because we were counting a long time before that and still are. So we're up in the 5,000s when this Christianized calendar is in the 20,000s. I mean 2000s. Oh, what am I saying? I don't know. I didn't sleep well last night. But I was thinking for many of us, because of the extraordinary change in our lives of this event, that should almost be the new timeline, because nothing will ever be quite the same again. I'm hoping we will, when we come out the other end of this, we will, for our suffering, be wiser and maybe even kinder. And that might be pie in the sky, but that's what I'm hoping. And I'm thinking BC and AD don't do it for me anymore. So I think it would be, what would it be? BC still works, before Corona, and AC after Corona, or something like that. But I really do think that our lives will never quite return to where they were. That might just be me, and that might be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know, but I don't know how an entire world of people, the entire globe, can go through a common and terrifying and so consequential an event and not change in some real ways. A friend sent me a piece the other day that she came upon from the Harvard Business Review, a publication on normal days I would not ever read. But wait a minute, I see that. Amy, thank you. AD is Anno Domino. Domino? Latin for in the year of our Lord, AD. Oh, of course it wouldn't be after death. Then it would be 33 years or whatever, however old he was later. AD. Well, but BC is not Latin, is it? What's BC stand for? And then there's a BCE, before the Common Era. What the hell's that? Oh, who cares? Anyway, the Harvard Business Review. And they ended up interviewing a doctor named David Kessler. And he is the world's foremost expert on grief. He is the one who co-wrote with, I think maybe the more famous, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the book on grief and grieving, the one that delineated these 5 stages of loss. He then, Kessler, added a book with her blessing, I believe, before she died, of a 6th stage, which he called meaning, finding meaning from all of that. And he has a you might want to look at is he is the founder of www.grief.com. And I had mentioned a few days ago, I think, when do we get to grieve the losses that we are suffering on a daily basis? And so the Harvard Business Review folks turned to Kessler, and yeah, he agrees. He says, the world has changed, and while we know this is temporary, it sure as hell doesn't feel that way. But that is like since 9/11. Remember what it used to be like to go to the airport before 9/11? Yes, I do. And since. That also was a delineation, a point at which what we had considered normal changed forever. But the loss of normalcy, the loss of what we thought was, going to be our lives, is reason, obviously, to feel grief. And a lot of us are not recognizing that some of the emotion we're feeling is grief. Whether it's the loss of connection to friends and family, whether it's the loss of people, whether it's the loss of your 401k, whether it's the loss of a sense of stability and security, we're grieving alone, together. And we aren't used to this kind of collective grief. With a virus, I'm going to quote Kessler here. With a virus, this kind, grief is so confusing for people because we're engaging in anticipatory grief, fearing the loss of all kinds of things, our jobs, our livelihood, our family members, our friends, people we love. And our primitive mind, because that's what we got, our primitive mind is aware something bad is happening. But we can't see it. And boy, our primitive brain is not wrong in saying, shit, that's not good. We're under attack and I can't see the enemy. And so we grieve also for a loss of a sense of safety. And Kessler says, I don't think we've collectively lost our sense of general safety like this before. And that's big. I mean, individually we maybe have, or in smaller groups we have, but all of us together, this is new. So we are grieving on a micro scale individually in our own heads and hearts. And we are also grieving on this universal level as well. And Kessler goes on to say, those 5 stages, I can't remember where they come. It was anger and anger, denial, blah, 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 blah. Bargaining, I know that's one, and you can see how maybe you've been in all those places. And he says, don't think they happen in a certain order, and they don't happen, and then you go careening back into another one. But finally, you do end up, if you can, at acceptance, he says, and acceptance would be like, okay, this is what's happening. This is it. I can't change it. There's nothing I can do. This is it. So I have to figure out how to proceed because I'm alive and I'm living in it. And Kessler says this kind of acceptance is where power lies, because you can find some measure of control in acceptance. Okay, I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to keep a safe distance. I'm going to work from home. I'm going to do everything that the people say I should do to keep myself and my family safe. So that's some of what he says. Let me see if there's anything else here he says, and this will be easier for some than for others, because I've said this must be holy hell on control freaks, because you're finding out you just don't have it. Not that you ever really did, but you just don't have it. He says it'd be good to figure out how to let go of what you cannot control. What your neighbor is doing, you can't control. What some other idiot maybe is doing, you cannot control. Just look to what you can control. That's you. And he says one of the hard things, and this is the one that I admit is the one that's getting me. One particularly troubling aspect of our new normal is the open-endedness. I said yesterday, I feel like we're all living with some indeterminate jail sentence. And it's hard not to know that there'll be when will it end? And that's why our child president decided Easter. Because in his truly primitive little pea brain, that is something that he has to have. He has to know this is going to end. He's decided, he's decreed Easter. And in fact, a reporter at his little, whatever that is, that show he does every day now, Mr. President, how did you come up with that date, with Easter? And do you know what our president said? Quote, I thought it was a beautiful time. Yeah. That, of course, is not a leader's response, nor is this arbitrary end date he has decreed. So that is one of the more troubling aspects, the open-endedness of it. But Kessler says it helps to remind yourself that, in fact, this is temporary. Might be a long temporary, but it is temporary. It will end. It is survivable, and it is time to overprotect, but not to overreact, and this will end. Unfortunately, you can't be told when, and that's tough. That is really tough. And he does think, too, that there will be meaning and wisdom that many of us will get from this. And here's his final words. He was asked, what do you have to say to someone who is just overwhelmed with everything and with what he is defining as grief, okay? You might feel it as fear. You might feel it as rage. You might feel it as whatever. But it really all holds under the umbrella of incredible loss and grief. And here are Kessler's words. Maybe they'll help. Keep trying. There is something powerful about naming this as grief. It helps us feel what's inside of us. He says, so many people have told me in the past week, I'm telling my coworkers I'm having a hard time, or I cried last night. You know, when you name it, you feel it, and it moves through you. Emotions, he says, need motion. Emotions need motion. It's important they be acknowledged so that we can help to move them through us. He says this: one unfortunate byproduct of the self-help movement is that we're pretty much the first generation to have feelings about our feelings. So we tell ourselves things like, I feel sad, but I shouldn't feel sad. Other people have it worse. I was telling, that's exactly what I said, I think, to my sister yesterday. I said, how can we complain? How can we, my God? I feel this or that, but my God, it doesn't rise anywhere near the level of what some people are dealing with. And Kessler says, don't do that. Stop at the first feeling. I feel sad, or I feel scared. Stop there. Don't add a but. I shouldn't. Just stop there. And let yourself go for 5 minutes to feel what you're feeling. Sad, angry, fearful, whatever. He says this, and then I'll shut up. And if you believe that, okay, your work is to feel your sadness and fear and anger, whether or not someone else is feeling something. Fighting it doesn't help because your body is producing the feeling. So you're fighting against yourself. Don't do it. Your body is feeling something. Sit with it. Let it be. Fighting it doesn't help. If we allow the feelings to happen, they will happen in a more orderly way, and it will empower you. And when you are empowered, you are not a victim. All right, so that from David Kessler, and I want to thank Tricia for sending me that, because in as much as you can keep it in mind and practice it, it's good. It's good. What else do I have here? I just sort of loathe to go there. I had a lot of rage yesterday for the president. I made the mistake of watching part of his 6 o'clock follies. And it is really something. It is really something. And I think at least Fauci was back. And when Fauci was talking, or when anyone else who's actually an expert is talking, you see Trump standing there. And I just can't help but feel that what's going on in his head when Dr. Fauci is speaking? Probably something akin to what Charlie Brown hears when grown-ups are talking. Just noise, because he's not listening. He's incapable of taking in that which he does not want to hear. He's incapable of tolerating somebody else being the center of attention while he stands to the side. So he at one point says something, and this, I just screamed. This is when I shut it off. My feminist rage made me shut it off. Trump said, I will be working with Dr. Fauci and Deborah. Who's Deborah? I thought. Dr. Fauci and Deborah? And then I realized, I still haven't checked, but Deborah must be the first name of the long-waisted Dr. Bricks, the woman. Doctor, expert, the the health advisor to the coronavirus task force, that doctor. And there is effing Trump saying, I will be working with Dr. Fauci. Yeah, the guy gets the title, and Deborah. That's when I turned it off. I should have turned it off before then, but that's what finally did it for me. I think, hang on, we have a caller. Caller, go ahead, please. Hi.
He was talking about the girl.
Did he actually say the girl at one point?
No.
Oh, no, you're saying he was talking about, yeah, the girl. Yeah, you're right. Unbelievable.
And don't you think Fauci's skin crawls every time he has to stand there and listen to it? I'm looking for expressions. And how do they? They should get Academy Awards when this is all over with, or else they're evil too. What is it?
I can't imagine. I could not do what they're doing. But, part of me says, why don't they literally, just tell the truth and say what the president just said is absolutely incorrect? Because they know that if they do, they're gone. And they are afraid of being gone because they need to be there to at least ameliorate, right? Perhaps, if possible.
They have a sense of duty. They're true patriots. They fucking truly care. And they're maybe the last grown-ups in the room since all his cabinet guys have disappeared. All the Boy Scouts are gone. And now we got this mess and the Easter thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I think this will all be over, and I'll be all very happy when the Pirates win the World Series too. How about that? I mean, it's when religious fanatics and people who've been burying their heads in the sand for 30 years now are finally they're up against science. And you can deny, but when you're dead or your loved ones are dead, then it doesn't matter anymore. I was listening to Fresh Air the other day. Did you hear the one where Terry Gross was interviewing was it Max Brooks?
No.
And
Max Boot?
Basically says...
Wait. Max Boot or...
Max Brooks. Like Albert Brooks, I think his son, or is it Mel Brooks' son? Gosh.
No, it's not. I don't know. There's Mel Brooks. I don't know that there's a Max Brooks. No, David Brooks.
That's the son. That's the son who wrote World War.
Oh, Max Brooks, the son of Mel Brooks. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. You're not Albert. Mel. And he says, all these shortages of supplies and everything. So it's not necessarily Trump's fault. It's just a collection of years and years of shrinking government, lowering taxes, and this has been going on for the past 30-some years because we don't want government getting involved in anything anymore. And he says, it's led to this. Now we're in a crisis, and we're not prepared. And I guess my big beef, and he didn't say this, my big beef is, when we have a for-profit healthcare system, they're treating hospital beds like hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they don't want empty ones because that's just money being wasted.
And that's why we have so few hospital beds in a situation like this, right?
And you can't think that way. You got to be prepared for the worst all the time, and that's what a responsible parental society works.
Right.
And I don't know how, I guess it started with the John Birch Society. I don't know.
But who knows where it started? All these things start with human nature, unfortunately, the worst parts of it. Hey, I got to go because I'm having a little technical difficulty here that's taken my attention away. But thank you. Thank you for the call. My website, guys, has tanked. I can't get it up, as they say. It's easier for me to say than a guy is supposed to say that. So I'm heading over to my Cullen Show at Yahoo account, and you should too. Cullen Show at Yahoo. Okay, and I do get that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There was some breaking news that I saw local right before we started up, and that is that the Pittsburgh sanitation workers, the guys who pick up your garbage, refuse to work today. Okay, so if you have a Wednesday pickup and you haven't heard those rumbling trucks, the reason is the workers are refusing. The parking lot at the sanitation building where they start out on their routes was packed early this morning with the people who are usually now out on those trucks. And they say that they've got a list of demands that they want met before they return to work. Now, I would say that they have got some serious leverage because the one thing that we don't need on top of everything else is garbage piling up, which becomes a health hazard as well. They are refusing because they say that they are not being given any protective gear, and they feel extremely at risk. Is Ryan there? Ryan? Hello? Ryan, are you there?
Yep.
Oh, you are? Great. Ryan Ditos, reporter, senior writer at Pittsburgh City Paper. Are you up at all on this on this sanitation walkout?
Yeah, I just saw the breaking stuff today, and so no, I think you probably know more than I do. I've been I had to pick something up for my girlfriend today, and then I'm looking on this other story.
Okay, but so well, I'll share what I have. They say that they want protective gear, they want masks. They say they want hazard pay. One of the guys was quoted as saying, "There's several of us who are diabetic, including myself. So if I catch this, I could die. There's a bunch of people. How many of you are diabetic?" And a bunch of people raise their hands. And they apparently Mayor Peduto is. They're waiting for a statement from the mayor. They were told to report back tomorrow at 5:30, but they were sent home with pay.
It's pretty crazy. They don't have masks, I have to say.
Well, they should have masks on a good day, it would seem. I don't know.
I would think any day they should be wearing.
Yeah, right. I do want to say I've often sung the praises of sanitation workers. I mean, what is like one of the more this is a job that, most people would not want. It's a job that is looked down on, What do you do? I'm a garbage man, right? It's like the lowest of the low.
Right. Even
and yet
it's usually like a pretty well-paying job.
And it pays okay, but here's the thing. Yeah. It's we find out this is a vital, life-saving kind of job. So while mine isn't, and a whole bunch of other people have found out that their jobs are not important enough to stay functioning, these guys who are at the low end of the totem pole, they have the job that impacts all of us more than any other, than many others. And yet we don't, and that's why I say they have got some serious leverage here.
Oh, for sure. I've got a feeling action's going to be pretty swift, especially because
I would think
picked up on it first. seems to,
I would think if I were the boss, I mean, if I were Peduto, I would immediately give them masks and gloves.
Yeah. I mean, they might not have masks though. They might not have,
fine.
Right?
Whatever. But I would not give them hazardous duty pay. I would not.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is their job is hazardous. One of the more hazardous jobs.
Yeah.
Garbage. People who collect garbage are regularly injured on the job. I mean, it's one of the higher injury rates of
really? I didn't know that.
Of any profession. I mean, first of all, just the physical toll of it, but also idiots putting out things, like broken glass. I mean, they get cut. They get so.
Right.
All I'm saying is. One of the garbage guys was quoted on KD as saying, "I say, if we don't pick up your rubbish, what are you going to do with it?"
Leave it out on the street.
Yeah, and then we got a rat infestation, and then we've got whatever. So there we have it. So what story are you? I mean, any story you're working on has to be related to this, I would imagine.
Yeah. Everything.
What are you working on?
I'm going to be writing something up about the strike too. Probably just aggregate because it looks like a lot of other reporters have done good work. But
what I did? Hey, wait! You're talking too fast and you ain't enunciating, and I didn't catch a word.
So I'll probably write something up on the garbage strike. But also, Port Authority recently changed their boarding policy, which effectively changes their fare policy for the buses at least. So everyone who still will be riding Port Authority buses as of today will board only through the back door unless you need to board through the front. Like if you're
in a wheelchair,
or if in a wheelchair or anything like that.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to be boarding through the back doors, and effectively you're basically just showing the bus driver your Connect card, which is essentially a free ride on the bus, right? Because you can't actually tap your card, and there's really no way for them to know if you have a.
Well, it's ridiculous for them to even have to show it. No one's getting on a bus if they don't have to get on a bus.
Right.
And so this is obviously to protect the drivers.
Yes, this is to protect the drivers and to encourage the 6 feet social distancing that they're trying to do. And so for buses, they'll be doing that. Light rails are basically going to stay the same because the light rail drivers are already kind of in a plastic enclosure, and the fare box is like around the back, or sometimes it's on the platform where they'll be doing that. So that's a change. A lot of transit advocates have been calling for that, and so that's a change. Apparently, they're going to pass a big bill today that might also provide like $25 billion, I think, to transit agencies.
Public transit. I mean, you're talking about the Congress. You're talking about the Congress.
Yeah, talking about Congress. Yeah. So this is kind of in line with the fact that, like, Port Authority knows that it's just losing money. It's just going to be losing a lot of ridership. It's losing a lot of money, and they're basically biting the bullet, at least for the bus riders, which is the majority of the agency riders in terms of what is essentially a fareless policy.
Yeah, it should be. I have, when I'm out walking my dog, I do. Mm-hmm. I see buses go by, and invariably they're empty, or you see 2 people in them. So there's no doubt that all of these transit. I mean, the New York subway is empty, if one can imagine such a thing.
Yeah. And we're a little more fortunate, in Pittsburgh area because we only get about 25% of the revenue from fares compared to other agencies like DC, which is usually around like 50% of their revenue from fares. So that puts us in a little bit better position short term, at least in terms of maybe not having to cut as much service as other places had to cut, even though we've already cut 25% of our service recently.
Here's what I don't get. I don't understand why we remain one of the states that is not totally closed down.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting too. I know Erie issued a stay-at-home order.
Erie has now. I mean, so all the city. I mean, so they think it's just, obviously Wolf's thinking just urban areas. He's not thinking about, the rural areas. And granted, I mean, obviously they are probably, less likely by virtue of the space in between people. But if you were, when you start this cherry picking stuff, I don't think it works because people move around.
Yeah, especially like in Pittsburgh, because there's still a decent amount of the population that lives just outside of Allegheny County. Like Cranberry and Peters Township are like really fastly growing areas. Sarver in Butler County, like these areas still have a lot of people, so they're still probably coming in and out of our county, which I would be thinking that the whole state's going to be shut down sooner rather.
Well, I'm really a little surprised at Wolf in this regard.
I am too. I mean, it does seem like confusing because on some things he's been swift, but then on other things he hasn't been, and in fairness, there isn't really a united front for him at this point. Like when he does something, there's still some loud voices that are like saying it's wrong, particularly conservatives like Mike Turzai and some others. I also sort of understand his predicament a little bit, but at the same time, he's also like, his last term, do whatever you want.
Yeah. By the way, I've also gotten this, speaking of, we were talking about the Pittsburgh sanitation workers walking off today. I'm looking at another tweet that's not from here, saying that the rank and file strike upsurge sweeping the country is the most important coronavirus story that nobody is talking about. And this talks about at a Domino's. Now, I don't know where this Domino's is, but an entire, all the employees at a Domino's walked out of their store. The general manager is the one who first walked out. He said he would no longer continue working unless he was offered paid sick leave.
Wow.
And then everybody else walked outside. They were telling customers who were coming up to the store, there's no one in there to serve you, and they were waiting for Domino's to do something. Have you heard about that? I don't know where.
No. I mean, I haven't heard about that. I've definitely heard about broader pressure that's being applied to a lot of companies that don't offer paid sick leave to offer paid sick leave. I know that Olive Garden and its parent company were pressured at the beginning, really, of this whole quarantine era, and they actually pretty swiftly announced a paid sick leave policy for everybody that works at Olive Garden and those other chains that they own. It's like a big conglomerate. I know that I read a story about Whole Foods and how they are offering an emergency paid time off policy, but it's only if you contract COVID-19 or are issued a quarantine because someone else like around you, contacted COVID-19 or something. It's just a little unfair to their policy, and a lot of workers are saying that policy is too lenient and is not robust enough that could really help like Whole Foods workers that like feel like they are in danger of getting sick, that like they should be given emergency paid time off as well. So I think there are a lot of efforts around the country to expand it. I find it really, I think one of the biggest stories really about this whole, coronavirus outbreak is all these social welfare policies, all these paid time off things, all these things that really like a lot of Democrats and a lot of liberals and a lot of leftists have been asking for a long time are now starting to get like just people with dominoes that are just like, oh, I demand this under these things. So it's kind of bringing to light the true dangers of not having these policies when we are under this epidemic. Yeah.
Well, I know that's what I certainly think. I know it's something that Republicans are fearing, that this is, turning Americans into socialists, or at least opening up their eyes.
Whatever you want to call. Have you seen? They're starting to circle the wagons around this idea that grandparents should just
sure. Yeah.
It's like it was one like funny joke, or like it was one thing that like Lieutenant Governor of Texas said, who's just an idiot. He just has a lot of stupid things. But now I'm seeing more and more people repeating this line. Basically, like Glenn Beck said it yesterday. Britt Hume from Fox News said it today. So they're like really starting to. This is like their strategy. It's so weird that like conservatives are starting to like. This is their strategy of basically like macho patriotism. Die for the economy.
Die for your country. Yeah, die for your country. And I mean, it's absurd because they actually think, I don't know what, well, they don't think. I mean, they think what? This thing is only taking out old people? It's not. There's plenty of, it could take, and most of them are old too. I mean, but they of course have access to the best. By the way, one of our listeners wrote this. I agree the entire state needs to be shut down. I heard that Erie County was placed on lockdown and became curious about that because they had 5 reported cases as of yesterday. Yet Washington County had 9 reported cases. So I did some research. She says, I did some research, thinking perhaps that Washington County has far less people. Well, turns out Erie County has a population of 274,000. Washington County has 205,000. And this is from Gigi. She says, seems to make sense that Washington County should be shut down as well. Although
is pretty big.
This piecemeal approach is absurd because the virus, Governor Wolf, and everybody else, the virus doesn't know from, lines on a friggin' map. I mean, what?
No, I think the state needs to be shut down at this point. I mean, I don't really understand the piecemeal either, but I don't know. I guess I don't know. This is the kind of way, this is just the way Pennsylvania politics always seems to work, though, So I just have to like ease people into shit.
I don't know that Pennsylvania politics has ever, from my experience, worked very well at all. And I just, we need people to step up. Hey, I found some good news, and I want to share it with everybody. Let me just get it up here. The coronavirus, this is from the Washington Post today. First of all, as we know, viruses evolve, right? And they mutate. They figure out how to get nastier.
They're living things.
Yeah. Well, kind of living things. They need a host. They're sort of like in a zombie state until they get into our cells, this one. And then they sort of come to life and they start replicating like crazy. But here's the good news. The coronavirus is not mutating significantly, it appears. And that is according to scientists around the globe who are busy studying this virus's genetic code. And the relative stability of this particular virus suggests that it is less likely to to change, obviously, as it spreads, become more dangerous or, unfortunately, less dangerous. But what's encouraging about this is it makes the possibility of a long-lasting vaccine more possible. If you stop and think about it, the regular flu, as we know, they change the flu shot every year, trying to figure out which particular, strain is.
It's a guessing game. Yeah.
Right. It's a total guessing game because the regular flu is mutating constantly. And they're saying this one, though, if it appears to not be what they call slippery like that, then it means that they will be able to perhaps, when they find a vaccine, have a vaccine that will, in other words, it's like a vaccine for measles or mumps. Once you take it once. And
which would mean that it won't come back every year like the flu, because that had been predicted that it would basically be like a new flu in addition to the flu.
Right. But exactly. But this is the first time I'm seeing this. And let's hope that this article is correct. They say there are a few different strains. They've found about 4 to 10 genetic differences between the strains that infected people here and the one that infected people in China. And while that sounds awful to me, the scientist says that is a very small number of mutations for having passed through so many people around the globe. And so, so he says at this point, the mutation rate of this particular coronavirus would suggest that if a vaccine is developed for it, it would be that one-time vaccine rather than a new vaccine every year like the flu. So let us hope that is true. That is, I tell you, that is the best thing I have read in
That's true. That is that's extremely encouraging for sure. That it could just be if they're able to find a vaccine, when they're predicting they would in the next maybe like 8 months or something, then we could just have this one
horror show for a year.
Right.
Yeah.
1 year where we're having.
Or a year and a half. Who knows?
Who knows?
And here's where.
Easter, Lynn. It's going to be over.
Oh, yeah, I'll see you at services. Save me a place in the pew. Here is some not so good news. The county has Allegheny County has just announced that a staff member at the Glen Hazel Kane Community Living Center has tested positive. Now, they say this person does not provide direct care to the people there, but that's whatever. You do not want that virus in a building that's housing so many vulnerable people. So that is not good news. I'm sorry to follow so quickly with Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see a lot of good news in Allegheny County in terms of the spread or deaths of this that are associated with this anytime soon, because it just seems to be going up and up. I think I think yesterday we had a death where
they didn't even know the person had it.
They didn't even know the person had it until after death.
Right. So the second death that we know of in Allegheny County, it was a 67-year-old, I think, maybe 76.
Yeah, in the
76-year-old woman in Greenfield. And she died, but she had never been tested. Nobody had counted her as a positive, and the medical examiner found she died of this.
Right. It was like posthumously. They figured, or sorry, posthumously, I should say. They figured out she had the virus, which is, Yeah, it's really scary. And like, Allegheny County and the surrounding region especially is really old. And we also like smoke a lot. Like we have high asthma rates because of air pollution. We're an extremely vulnerable place. And I know that's like kind of scary, but at the same time, I just think that just be another reminder of people to really take extra caution in our region because of our high proportion of demographics that really fit into those vulnerability statistics.
Well, as an old asthmatic in Allegheny County, I certainly underscore what you have said. I saw somewhere that because people are that beards are trending, men who are. I'm growing out a beard even though I can't grow a beard, so I just look like an idiot. But so everybody's doing that. So that's what all you guys, when we come out of the other end of this, are gonna look like, crazed mountain men.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna look like a prepubescent boy because that's about all I can. That's about all I can grow.
That's all you're good for, huh?
Right? No matter what, they just get longer. They look. It looks terrible, honestly.
You mean like one little hair here?
Yeah, like I have little patches that get kind of long, but they don't really get like bushy or scruffy or anything.
Yeah, I understand. Well, as long as your girlfriend still loves you, that's okay.
Yeah, she says I should do it, so we could just an experiment to see what it looks like. Hey, did you see? Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Did you see they're probably going to change the election date?
Yes, I think they did.
Yeah,
I thought they did.
The House voted it through. The Senate still needs to vote, and the governor says he's going to sign it. It could be today, honestly. So I think that's a good move, and I think City Paper we're going to do a story about it, but also kind of remind people and encourage people to use the new vote by mail law.
Exactly.
Exactly,
and
on that.
I had just made. I'm looking right here. I had made myself a note here. Guys, here's what we're all going to do, and you can do this now. You can apply to vote by mail. Just go to AlleghenyVotes.com, okay?
Yep.
AlleghenyVotes.com. And
you can fill it out online, and then they'll send you a ballot when it's finalized. And I don't know what the timeline on it being finalized. It's supposed to be finalized by now, but with the court shut down, they have to figure out how to, who's going to get kicked off the ballot or anything like that. So, but they'll send it directly to you, and you can just fill it out from there.
So please, that's something you can add, and fill out your census forms.
Yeah, that too.
Your census forms and AlleghenyVotes.com, all important stuff. Well, Ryan, I'm not gonna torture you too much, but somewhere on tape we do have, because it's all archived, that little exchange between us when we were. Remember the good old days when we were sitting next to each other, and and I turned to you and said, "So what do you think about this possible pandemic in China?" And you said, "Ha!" Something to that effect. Oh yeah, these things come around every yeah. Do you remember that?
Oh, of course I do. I still remember it. I actually applaud myself for adjusting, and I mean that is really what it's about, though. Did you see that story about? There was that viral story about those spring breakers that were playing the virus, and everybody was making fun of them. I got pretty mad at that because I'm like, these kids are like 20 years old. Like we all did stupid things. We all did like dumb things when we were 20. And like, why are we like,
Yeah, but the dumb things, listen, wait a minute. The dumb things we did when I was 20, and I must say 21, 22, 23, 24 too.
Yeah.
Those were dangers to myself.
Right. But we've never been through anything like this.
I don't care. Those fucking, every one of those bikini-clad sons of bitches I looked at and saw a murderer. Because that's the reality.
You would have done the same exact
I would not.
thing if this had happened at 20 years old.
I would not.
I think a
No,
lot of us would have.
you didn't know me then. I assure
Yeah.
you, I never did a spring break any kind of thing.
Me neither. But anyway, I just think a lot of us would have. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is that guy who had the video, it looked like he got punched in the face too.
He's got it.
No, he apologized.
Oh, well, good for him.
Apology. And I think that's what needs to happen in these situations is we need to adjust. Because what's the real way to handle these things? Anytime there's a pandemic, do we just freak out instantly, or
yes.
do we?
Because it's not freaking out. It's not freaking out.
Uh-huh.
It's being wise.
Right.
It's being communitarian as opposed to, but I wanted to go on spring break.
Right.
So anyway, hey, we're out of time, buddy.
Okay.
You got work to do.
I do.
You got to grow a beard and you got to write a story.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Bye,
nice
Lynn.
talking to you. Bye.
Bye.
And as for the rest of you, I'll be here tomorrow because, this is where I'll be every day until I'll see you at Easter services, okay? Be smart. Stay well. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.